And as we always do at the start of our service and in community with Unitarians across the world and here in the UK, we begin as always by lighting our chalice. We have some words here that were written by the Reverend Rob Whiteman. May our souls be united in praise and wonder for that which remains still amid the flow, for that which remains quiet amid the music, for that which remains cool amid the heat, for that which remains dark amid the blaze, for that which remains alive amid death, for that which remains while all is changing, we light our chalice. May it be so. Now, today is an All Souls service. I'm going to talk a bit about what All Souls is, but the intention is that today is some space for us to remember anyone we may have lost in the past year, 2 years, or whenever you want to remember. So let me speak a little now about All Souls Day. And to do that, I'm going to start with a reading, and this was written by the Reverend Laura Dobson. It's called The Ancestors' Call, a reflection for Samhain, All Saints and All Souls. At the Celtic Festival of Samhain, which is the 31st of October to the 1st of November, and the corresponding Christian festivals of All Hallows, which is the 31st of October, and many of you will know, actually, All Hallows is also known as All Saints, that is the 1st of November. All Hallows Eve is the 31st of October, hence our name, Halloween. All Souls Day is the 2nd of November. At this time, we are invited to honour our dead and remember our ancestors. In the Christian calendar, All Saints on the 1st of November remembers the saints, but it then became the tradition that on the 2nd of November, prayers would be said to remember all souls, all who had passed away, and to remember them and pray that they may have achieved happiness in whatever happens after death. In the Celtic tradition, Samhain is said to be a time when the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead, the matter and spirit, is said to be thin. And it's notable that the origin of our modern Halloween customs centred around ghosts and ghouls and the return of the spirits of the dead. All cultures honour their ancestors in some way. We tell stories, build monuments to our dead, and keep their heirlooms. In some cultures, ancestors may be seen as spirit guides. In the Shinto religion of Japan, the ancient ancestors of clans are thought to have become kami, or the spirits of place. There's an African chant that goes, "In my blood, in my bones, I hear your voice, I hear your call. Ancestors dance with me, ancestors chant with me. I hear your voice, I hear your call." In West African traditional religion, ancestors remain alongside the living as long as they have descendants to honour them. They can help, harm, or sometimes just cause mischief to a descendant. To ensure the ancestors' kindness and goodwill, they must be honoured with prayers and offerings. Thinking of keeping their heirlooms, it's rather noticeable if you walk around our own building here at Newcastle-on-Tyne Unitarians, that many of the items we have in here are dedicated to the memory of previous congregational members. Behind me are 2 chairs, one for Ron Coulson behind me there, and one for Eleanor Broad, which is there. Ron and Eleanor were long-serving members of our congregation, both of whom sat on our management committee. They were much loved and much appreciated, and we had the chairs made in their memory. This chair here, I have to bend down to read it, was presented by Mrs. A. Burnett in memory of Arthur Burnett, who was the secretary of the church between 1924 to 1933. In some ways, one of my predecessors, I suppose, since alongside being the chair, I also hold the title of secretary. This pulpit here, the small lectern, was given by Lambert and Greta Large on the occasion of their golden wedding in 1989. And they were the parents of Maurice Large, who is another long-standing member of our congregation, also another chair and secretary. And at the back, we have a bookcase which was dedicated, well, is dedicated to a member of the junior church from years ago, who unfortunately died young. There are other memorials throughout our building. It's our hope that we'll perhaps be able to make even more of them in future. Whether or not we believe in the continuing conscious existence of our ancestors' spirits, they live on through their descendants. Our inheritance includes not only our DNA, our physical characteristics and our personality traits, but also stories, values, patterns, and all the things that make up our complex culture. The science of epigenetics is uncovering how ancestral trauma may be passed down through the generations via gene expression, resulting in persistent emotional and behavioural patterns in the descendants of those traumatised. And for those who do not have physical descendants of their bodies, I personally, this is me speaking by the way, not Reverend Dobson, believe that each of us contributes something to our wider human society. It is not always obvious what we may contribute. It may not always be as dramatic as this building, which was built by many people, but which particularly remembers the Reverend Herbert Barnes, under whose guidance it was built. But the existence, say, of our own congregation is due to the hard work of many people throughout the generations, some of whom we know of, some of whom have passed into history. But even those whose names we don't know have their memorial in what they achieved. And I believe that is the case for many of us. We all can contribute something, and even if our names are not always known, what we have done can live after us. To return to Reverend Dobson's words, our inheritance is complicated. Like many people, my family history, hers, is complicated. At Sarwain, I honour my ancestors of blood, place and spirit. I light a candle to my forebears and spend some time remembering their stories with gratitude and acknowledging the patterns and traits, both positive and negative, that they have bequeathed to me. To honour my ancestors of place, I spend some time connecting with the myths and stories of those peoples who came from over the sea many generations ago to make these islands their homes, such as the Celts, Angles, Jutes, Saxons and Scandinavians. And certainly here in Newcastle, there are quite a few traces of our Scandinavian forebears. And those who arrived more recently, for example, from India, Africa, the Caribbean, Eastern Europe, and especially here in Newcastle, from China. I give thanks for the blessings of living in a society with so many different cultures. I may also spend time connecting with the land around me and its history. I walk through farmland and woodland and along the canal to Chadkirk Chapel, which has been a sacred site for many centuries. St. Chad was said to have founded a monastic cell there in around the year 670. There is a holy well near to the present chapel, which was likely a place where people had made sacred offerings for many generations before the arrival of Christianity. The local community still dress the well every summer. And that reminds me of our own St. Mary's well here in Newcastle in Jesmond, which is the origin of the name Pilgrim Street in the city centre. It was the pilgrim route to St. Mary's. If you go there, many people still do regularly attend it and light candles and leave pictures. It is very much a place of worship and remembrance. Although if you do go there, I advise wearing a pair of sturdy boots and take a hat. The present chapel building at Chadkirk Chapel dates back to the 16th century. By the 1640s, the congregation had embraced Puritanism, and the story starts to sound familiar for those of us who know our Unitarian history. The building had been registered as the first nonconformist place of worship in Cheshire. In 1705, the nonconformists were evicted and the chapel was reclaimed by the Church of England. At this one site, then, it is possible to reconnect with the traditions of ancient paganism, Celtic Christianity, and nonconformism, which inspire us today. There's a Yoruba African proverb: if we stand tall, it is because we stand upon the shoulders of those who came before us. The Unitarian Universalist minister, Alice Blair Wesley, said, "Joining a church is adopting a new set of ancestors. At Sarwain, I honour the ancestors of my spiritual tradition, people whose life stories impacted on mine and helped to make me the person I am. In Unitarianism, we are blessed by a cloud of witnesses, many spiritual ancestors whose inspirational lives call us to work for social justice in our own time. Here are a few of those inspirational lives. Joseph Priestley, whose chapel and house were burnt down by an angry mob over his support for the French Revolution. If you ever visit Mill Hill Chapel in Leeds, they can tell you quite a lot about Joseph Priestley, who was an active member there. Mary Wollstonecraft, who is the author of A Vindication of the Rights of Women. Elizabeth Gaskell and William Gaskell, whose writings and Unitarian witness drew public attention to the poor conditions suffered by the working class in Manchester. Theodore Parker, who worked for the abolition of slavery, and of course here at Newcastle we're going to add Reverend William Turner, who was also very active in the anti-slavery movement. Clara Barton, who established the American Red Cross. Gwilym Mars, who was evicted, along with his congregation, from the chapel at Llyn Rhydywen, my apologies to Welsh speakers for that terrible mangling of the Welsh pronunciation, for refusing to vote the way their landlords told them. Reverend Norbert Chapek, Maya Chapek, and Rosalind Lee, who risked their lives, and in Reverend Norbert Chapek's case, gave it, to rescue children and adults from Nazi persecution. Reverend Chapek was, of course, the originator of the Flower Communion service we celebrate each summer. And I am going to add in, well, I've mentioned Ron Coulson, Eleanor Broad, Reverend Herbert Barnes. I'm also going to mention Ruth Healy, an ancestor here at Newcastle, who did a great deal of work with deaf children in Newcastle and elsewhere, and was a very active proponent of proper education for them at a time when deaf children often struggled to access proper education because it didn't support their unique communication needs. She was very active there, and it's something we still remember. So now, that is a little of an introduction to Sarwain, All Saints and All Souls. We shall join together in prayer, and then we shall have our first hymn. And Jane has kindly agreed that she will read our prayer.
Prayer for All Souls by Reverend Rob Whiteman. At this darkening time of the year, our thoughts turn to things past, to life retreating, to those who have died. Images come to our minds of dear companions who once graced our lives, loved ones whom we miss, persons whose lives made an impact on our lives, of all those who were here, contributing, caring, and are now gone. Our memories bring both joy and sadness. Let us not push these feelings away, for our recollections attest to the enduring importance of these friends, this love, our memories. May these brave and lovely spirits live again in our tender thoughts, and prove that death and distance are powerless to sever the bonds that connect truly loving hearts. Spirit of life, whom we know best in our own loving and being loved, hold us as we remember those we have loved and those who have loved us. May our gratitude sparkle in our lives. May our tears lubricate our souls. Help us to know that we are not alone in our grieving, and help us also to come to that peaceful place in which we can take what we have learned from those who have died into our own lives. Remind us that we too are mortal, and that the only enduring legacy we leave is the love that shines through our lives. May it be so. Amen.
I'd like to say thank you also to Reverend Rob Whiteman, who helped me a great deal in putting together this service. And this is part 2 of The Ancestors' Call by Reverend Dobson. From Psalm 85. Faithfulness and truth meet, justice and well-being kiss. Truth springs up from the earth, and justice looks down from heaven. The Lord also bestows his bounty, our land yields its produce. Justice goes before him as he sets out on his way. The other aspect of Samhain, the ancient Celtic festival, is that it is the final harvest festival of the wheel of the year. Reverend Dobson comments that one side of my family still make a living from the land as farmers. If you go back not that far ago, not that many generations, so did all of our ancestors, or at least the vast majority of them. At the end of October, they would gather in the last of the harvest and kill all but the breeding livestock, so that they had the minimum number of mouths to feed through the winter. They would then preserve the fruits, nuts and meat for the winter food stores, just as crows and squirrels bury their winter stores of nuts. My family still sell their cattle at Martinmas, which is 11th of November, sometimes called Old Halloween. As with many celebrations and festivals, dates were somewhat flexible in earlier times. People might remember that at the earlier harvest festival, I spoke of how there were technically 3 harvests. The first grain harvest, the harvest of the later crops, and then Samhain marks the final harvest of fruit, nuts, and as Reverend Dobson mentions, it was traditionally when people would kill animals that weren't needed for breeding, so that they would have meat to preserve for the winter and would also be able to have enough food to feed the animals with so that they didn't starve. Obviously, again, this is a time rich with ceremony and ritual. That's where our origin of bonfire night comes from. I think many people here may know this, that bonfire is a shortening of the old phrase bone fire. The fires were held to burn the carcasses of what was left over after the butchering was done. And our ancestors lived with a real risk that they might not survive to see the new year, and there are many people around the world still in that situation today. In the autumn, they would be assessing whether this year's harvest was good enough to ensure that they had enough food to last throughout winter. Sadly, as our energy and economic crisis deepens at present, many in our society today face winters of hardship and deprivation. Now, congregations all over the country are considering how best to support people most in need throughout the communities. Perhaps by opening our doors for the Warm Room initiative, where congregations are able to do that, providing donations and volunteers for local food banks, or fundraising for other charities who help those who are struggling to survive. And at this point, I'd like to say a thank you to people who have generously given donations for our harvest festivals earlier. All of this will be going to the West End Food Bank and the People's Kitchen. Saying from Brian Boothby, I am tomorrow's ancestor, the future of yesterday. And what I am in the here and now goes rippling out all ways, goes rippling out in all ways. And that makes me think, I don't know if anyone has seen the bronze plaque near Gray's Monument. Take a look, it's at the start of Granger Street. Among other words carved on it, it's hard to miss, it's really big. It says, the past is my present to your future. So honouring our ancestors and those who went before us connects us not only with our family and cultural histories, but also with the future. It reminds us that we too will one day be ancestors, whether of our physical descendants or our spiritual or communal descendants. Our presence will be felt beyond our lifetime, because our choices today are shaping the lives of those who will follow us and will affect all the generations to come. While much of the legacy our ancestors bequeathed us is positive, such as many advances in human rights, in equality, in medicine, in education, we have also inherited a legacy of conflict, injustice and oppression. War, racism, the economic crisis, the energy crisis, the climate crisis. These are all ultimately part of one and the same crisis. It's a spiritual crisis of disconnection from the earth, from each other, from the sacred. A crisis that manifests in humanity treating our earth as a thing to be possessed and endlessly exploited. A crisis that now threatens the survival of all species on earth, not just ours. Our current political systems encourage short-termism and an obsession with growth, growth, growth. May we learn instead from the Haudenosaunee philosophy of looking ahead for 7 generations when we consider what will be the legacy we pass on to our future generations. And as the Reverend Desmond Tutu once said, we take care of our world by taking care of each other. It is as simple and as difficult as that. I believe that just as it is possible to heal from ancestral trauma, though the road is long and hard, it is possible to also heal from the legacy of separation and disconnection. Some of the tools we can use to begin to heal are what 2 teachers, Nicola and Jason Smalley, who have written a book called The Way of the Buzzard, refer to as the 5 C's: community, connection, celebration, creativity, and ceremony. These are things that can give our lives meaning in the midst of chaos. They can help us along the road from division and disconnection to healing and wholeness. So this Samhain, let us, if we can, connect with the land by getting outside and listening to its stories, connect with each other in community, celebrate our ancestors, whether physical or spiritual, or the ancestors of place, in whatever ways are meaningful to us. Take time to be creative in some way and connect with whatever you consider sacred through ceremony. And as Shelley Jackson Denham said, when life is done for me, let love be my legacy. There is another word for the connection that heals us: love. Not sentimental love, but passion and compassion. What we love, what we are passionate about, is what we want to care for. May we fall passionately and compassionately in love with the earth and with our communities, our fellow living beings. And may we bequeath a legacy of love. Words by Reverend Laura Dobson. Words from Leonard Cohen. That was from one of his last albums, You Want It Darker. Apparently, he was persuaded to do that by his son Adam, who said words along the lines of, Dad, people should really hear what you've been saying, so strip back the music and let it be simple so we can hear your words. Among his many other accomplishments, Leonard Cohen was also an ordained Buddhist monk. Someone once observed that many people looked to their musical idols for spiritual guidance. He was one of the relatively few who was actually qualified to provide it. Although I am told that for anyone attending the centre where he practiced Buddhism, it was somewhat distracting because they would be sitting there trying to meditate whilst also thinking, that's Leonard Cohen. So this is a time, and I mean this particular time, autumn in 2022, when many of us may feel overwhelmed. There's been so much in these last 2 years. Everything from pandemic to war, great political change, struggles with the cost of living and the climate crisis. I think I'm perhaps not the only one who feels that many of us never really had the time to mourn those we lost, whose funerals we couldn't attend. We don't speak so much of the pandemic now. I don't know, my own personal feeling is in some ways we never had a chance to mark its end and reflect on it. Events overtook us all. I think we need time to remember, which is why I wanted to have this service. As such, this service doesn't contain a full address from me, although I've spoken about what All Souls means and shared some thoughts, poems and prayers. I'd like to allow us time to say what we might need, to say what we wish about those we cared for, people we may have loved and lost over the past few years, or perhaps longer. If there is someone who meant a great deal to you who you wish to remember today, please do. All those we have loved and we have lost and whom we remember today. May our happy memories of them cheer our hearts. May we never forget them, and may we continue in love together. I spoke earlier of Leonard Cohen, and before we have the notices, I'd just like to quickly read something he wrote. As I mentioned before, the song we heard was from one of his last albums. Those of you familiar with Cohen's works may remember that he had many muses, and among them was a woman called Marianne, for whom he famously wrote the song So Long, Marianne. Later on, towards the end of his life, he wrote this letter as she was approaching death. Well, Marianne, it's come to this time when we are really so old and our bodies are falling apart, and I think I will follow you very soon. Know that I am so close behind you that if you stretch out your hand, I think you can reach mine. And I think you know that I've always loved you for your beauty and your wisdom, but I don't need to say anything more about that because you know all about that. But now, I just want to wish you a very good journey. Goodbye, old friend. Endless love, and see you down the road. Put out the light of our chalice. Its physical flame is out, but its light remains with us until we are able to gather in person once more. And here are some closing words from the poet Mary Oliver. To live in this world, you must be able to do 3 things. To love what is mortal. To hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. And now in our going, may divine love bless and keep us. May the light of God shine upon us and out from within us. And be gracious unto us and bring us peace. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. May it be so. Amen.